Hello and welcome to another typing puzzles video where I show you a little tiny piece of code, usually from something I'm either working on or fixing, and we'll go through solving the problem. Unfortunately, today's puzzle is a bit different in that I don't have a good solution for it, so I'm hoping that someone in the comments will have a better solution than mine, but I will walk you through it nonetheless. As always, we clone the repo so that you can see where it comes from. And then we'll set up MyPy so you can see what version we're using, and we'll go from there. We're actually also going to use Pyrite today because even Pyrite doesn't seem to help me out here either, which is a little bit annoying. So let's pip install MyPy, and then we will npm Pyrite. Pyrite is a type checker written in JavaScript. And we'll look at the puzzle for today. Okay. Puzzle 009. Right. That's where these live. So the puzzle for today is, it looks relatively straightforward. I've stubbed out all the stuff that's not important. Like, we're not actually going to implement this class. We're not actually going to implement the function. But we have a function which is going to take in a type and a default value for that type. This actually comes from a project I'm working on at work, which is making our runtime configuration something that is type checkable. And in order to represent them, we sort of have to have a schema, and every option has to have a default. And in this case, I want to make sure that the type that we're configuring in our little mini schema language matches the default. So, take in a type, take in a default, and then produce an option. And some examples down here. It should be okay to say that the type is stir and the default is the empty string. The type could be int and the default could be 0. The type could be any type as long as the default matches. That's the goal of this little function here. And it looks like it should work as written. However, and this should be an error down here. Like if you pass stir as the type and the default being 0, this should be an error in theory. Unfortunately, if we run type checker on this, you'll notice that it is okay, and in fact, if we node models bin, if we run the other type checker on this as well, it's also okay with this. And if we look at the reveal type for these, so we do the one where it's stir, it should be option built-in stir. That works great. If we go down to this weird one, which should have been an error, we actually see that an interesting thing has happened. MyPy has decided that our type gets narrowed to object because the only common base class between stir and int in this case is object, so obviously this must be object. I'm assuming there's some way to constrain the variance here to make this work probably better. Hint, hint, if you want to approach this problem in a different way than I did, but then you can't use the new type variable syntax because there is no way to force variance in this mode. This is always automatic variance. But I'll show you the solution that I came up with. Let's undo everything here. And I don't really like my solution because it changes. It doesn't actually solve the problem. Usually in these puzzles, I like to preserve exactly the function that we're given as the input, and we're just adding annotations to make sure that function works. But in this case, I'm actually going to change the function because I found, that this would be nice if we did it in one function, but I'm going to cheat. So the way I cheated is to make a partial option, which also takes that same t and then has a default function on it. Object t to option. And of course, we're not going to actually implement this, but. And so now our make option function instead just takes our type and returns our partial option. So this is sort of like a little builder pattern here. And so instead of having this syntax here where we just call it like this, we now have something that looks like this. And because we're binding the type in the first step and then calling a method, the type checker knows that, okay, this is going to return partial option stir, so it must take a stir as a parameter. And so if we go down here and do this, we'll finally get an error when we pass the wrong type in here. So this is the solution that I came up with. I'm not super happy with it, but it does appear to work. So if we run solution on this and we fix the syntax, of course. What did we screw up here? Oh, a random dot there. You'll see here that we get an error message. The error message isn't great. It says, you know, argument 1 to default a partial option has incompatible type int expected stir, but at least we get this like expected stir out of that, which I think is nice enough, and enough to constrain the problem so that, you know, there's actually a workable way to do this. But I don't know. I couldn't come up with a better solution to this. Maybe you in the comments will. Maybe you'll show me some cool, you know, contravariance something that lets this, you know, be, I guess, invariant in the first parameter and covariant in the second. I don't know. Variance something. But anyway, this is the solution I came up with. Hopefully you'll have one that's better than mine. And if you have other typing puzzles you want to see, either leave them in the comments or join the Discord. There's a MyPy channel where we share some of these, and sometimes they get turned into videos. But anyway, hopefully you found this interesting, and I will see you in the next one.